Before we get to that, make sure you are subscribed. Subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching. And look, tip of the cap to a lot of you guys. We got a lot of new subscribers on that video I dropped yesterday afternoon that seemed to make a lot of people mad until I looked at how many people decided to sub after I made that video. Bravo. Good job.
NBC just made a power move that changes everything about how basketball media works. Caitlin Clark, the biggest draw in women's basketball, is joining their Sunday night coverage as a special contributor. And this isn't some token appearance or feel-good feature. This is NBC putting their flagship basketball program on her shoulders before she's even fully recovered from her injury. Think about what that means. The network that paid billions for NBA rights is betting their premier basketball show on a WNBA player who's still in her off-season. That's not a favor. That's a business decision based on cold, hard numbers.
You know, I don't know how much. There's no CBA right now. And this, of course, would run through, let's see, what? At least May, in theory. I don't know. We don't have any dates that stretch that far yet. I still think they're going to get the CBA done, folks.
February 1st. That's the date. Lakers versus Knicks at Madison Square Garden. The most famous arena in basketball, the league's two biggest media markets, and Caitlin Clark making her debut as a TV analyst. NBC isn't easing her into this role with some random Tuesday night game in Sacramento. They're throwing her straight into the deep end with premium matchups and maximum visibility. And here's what makes this fascinating. The CBA negotiations are still ongoing. There's no guarantee the 2026 WNBA season even happens on schedule. But NBC is already locking Caitlin into basketball coverage that runs through March, with her second appearance scheduled for Thunder versus Knicks on March 9th.
That is, if there is a new CBA agreed upon. Before then, again, I've told you guys, I've got the over-under on February 15th. I just have a feeling. That's just my gut feeling that when push comes to shove, again, I believe a lot of players on the back end of the players that would be on the back end of rosters are going to see all that new money and be like, you know what, we're crossing the line.
Now let's talk about what didn't happen here. ESPN didn't get her. Turner didn't get her. USA Network, which is owned by NBC's parent company, didn't even get consideration. NBC went straight for their flagship Sunday night program. The same format that made Sunday Night Football the most watched show on television for over a decade. Basketball night in America. That's what they're calling it. Same branding strategy, same production team, led by Sam Flood, same premium positioning in their schedule, and they're pairing Caitlin with Hall of Famers Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, and Reggie Miller. That's not a WNBA panel. That's their A-team for NBA coverage.
One still involving basketball. It was announced on Tuesday that Caitlin Clark will join NBC Sports to serve as a special contributor for its new Basketball Night in America program. Caitlin Clark will make her debut as a TV analyst on February 1st, preceding the Lakers versus Knicks game at Madison Square Garden, per a release from NBC. Wow. So this would be...
Maria Taylor will host, the same person who anchors Football Night in America with analysts like Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison. NBC is treating this basketball show with the exact same infrastructure and talent investment they use for the NFL. And they're putting Caitlin Clark right in the middle of it, analyzing NBA games alongside legends who've won championships and MVPs. The optics here are deliberate. NBC wants viewers to see Caitlin as a basketball analyst, period. Not a WNBA analyst who occasionally comments on the NBA. A basketball mind who can break down pick-and-roll coverage, defensive rotations, and offensive schemes at the highest level of the sport.
Knicks Caitlin Clark joins Michael Jordan as a splashy acquisition for NBC and NBA coverage. Despite his limited role, simply having Jordan as part of the coverage created buzz. NBC is surely hoping Caitlin Clark's involvement will do the same. Of course, Caitlin Clark is expected to offer unique insights in assuming the analyst role for the first time, and her basketball IQ cannot be questioned. So the transition.
But here's where this gets really interesting from a business perspective. NBC also has WNBA broadcast rights starting in They're not just hiring Caitlin for NBA coverage. They're building a relationship with the player who single-handedly changed the economics of women's basketball. The player whose games averaged 1.2 million viewers on cable networks that usually pull 400,000 for WNBA games. Caitlin Clark isn't just the future of the WNBA. She's the present. Right now, while she's injured and can't even play, NBC is capitalizing on that reality by giving her a platform that keeps her in front of basketball fans during the entire offseason.
Let's go over here. This is the official from NBC Sports, the press release. And it basically does say the same thing. However, Caitlin Clark is going to join the studio team of Maria Taylor. She also hosts Football Night in America with Chris Sims and Mike Florio, Rodney Harrison, Tony Dungy, and Jason Garrett. Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, and Tracy McGrady for pregame commentary.
Let's break down the timeline here, because it reveals NBC's strategy. Caitlin's first appearance is February 1st. That's 3 months before the WNBA season is scheduled to start in May, assuming the CBA gets done. Her second appearance is March 9th, which is right when FIBA World Cup qualifiers happen, and Caitlin has committed to playing for Team USA. So NBC gets her during the dead period for WNBA content, when casual fans might forget about the league entirely. They're using her star power to build their NBA audience, then transitioning that same audience to WNBA coverage when the season starts. It's a cross-promotion strategy that's never been attempted at this scale in women's sports.
The launch of Sunday night basketball. So that's very interesting. By the way, you can watch these online at Peacock, on the Peacock app, which is NBC's official app out there. And I've got it because, well, there's some decent stuff on Peacock. There's movies. There's a couple of old series I watch on there. And WWE Saturday Night Main Event is on there.
Now think about what this means for Caitlin's media training and development. She's going to be analyzing LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle on national television. She'll be breaking down NBA-level schemes and strategies in real time, on camera, with millions of people watching. That's not just a side gig, that's an accelerated masterclass in basketball analysis, taught by some of the best to ever play the game. When she returns to the court for the Indiana Fever, she'll have spent months studying film with Hall of Famers, discussing advanced concepts with elite analysts, and developing the kind of basketball IQ that usually takes years to cultivate. NBC is essentially paying her to become a better player while simultaneously building their own brand.
Good app. I like it. This is interesting. You notice ESPN did not jump in. You know, I don't see anything from USA Network on here. I mean, pretty safe to say they wasn't going to put her on a panel with Elle Duncan, I wouldn't think. Who knows? I mean, you never know with media outlets. NBC, I believe, owns USA Network, actually. But you see, this is going to be the flagship NBC.
Here's what this reveals about Caitlin's market value beyond basketball. She's not just an athlete who can fill arenas. She's a media personality who can drive viewership across multiple platforms and sports. NBC wouldn't put her on their premier basketball show if they didn't have data showing that her presence moves the needle with audiences. And remember, this is the network that turned Sunday Night Football into a cultural institution. They understand how to build appointment television. They know how to create personalities that transcend their sport, and they're applying that exact same playbook to Caitlin Clark. Let me put this in perspective with some context about how unprecedented this actually is. When was the last time a professional athlete in their second year became a special contributor to a major network's flagship sports program? Not a guest appearance, not a one-off interview, a recurring analyst role on premium broadcasts. Michael Jordan had limited involvement with NBC's NBA coverage, and that was after he'd won championships and become the most famous athlete on the planet. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird didn't transition to regular analyst roles until years after retirement. Charles Barkley didn't become a media star until he was done playing. Caitlin Clark is doing this at 23 years old, 8 months into her professional career, while she's still recovering from injury. That timeline is absurd. It defies every conventional path to sports media success. And here's what makes it even more remarkable. She's not analyzing the sport she plays professionally. She's analyzing the NBA, which has different rules, different pace, different physicality, different everything. NBC is betting that her basketball IQ translates across leagues, that fans will respect her insights on the men's game, and that her presence adds value beyond just name recognition. That's a massive vote of confidence in her ability to break down basketball at the highest level. NBC isn't hiring her because she's famous. They're hiring her because they believe she can actually do the job at an elite level. Now let's talk about what this means for the CBA negotiations, because the timing here is not coincidental. The Players Association and the league are currently locked in discussions about revenue sharing, salary structures, and the future economics of the WNBA. And while those negotiations are happening, the league's biggest star is out there proving that WNBA players can command premium media deals independent of their playing contract. Caitlin's NBC deal, whatever the financial terms are, demonstrates that individual WNBA players have market value that extends far beyond their league salaries. She's getting paid by a major network to talk about basketball during her off-season. That's leverage. That's proof of concept for the argument that WNBA players deserve a bigger share of revenue because they're driving viewership and engagement across the entire basketball ecosystem. The Players Association can point to this deal and say, look, this is what the market is willing to pay for access to our talent. This is the value that WNBA players bring to media companies. Now let's talk about how that value should be reflected in our collective bargaining agreement. And think about the pressure this puts on the league and the owners. If NBC is willing to invest in Caitlin Clark as a media personality, if they're building their basketball coverage around her insights and analysis, then what does that say about the WNBA's own media valuation? How can the league argue that they can't afford higher salaries when their star player is clearly worth premium money to broadcast partners? This deal changes the negotiating dynamics in ways that might not be immediately obvious, but will absolutely matter when both sides are trying to figure out what's fair and what's sustainable. Here's another angle that's worth examining. Caitlin is joining a panel with Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, and Tracy McGrady. 3 players who combined for over 80,000 career points in the NBA. 3 players who were all-stars, Olympic gold medalists, and cultural icons in their sport. And NBC is putting Caitlin in that conversation as an equal contributor. That's a statement about how the network views the intersection of NBA and WNBA coverage. They're not segregating the analysis by gender. They're creating a panel of basketball minds who can speak to the game from different perspectives and experiences. Caitlin's perspective as a current WNBA player adds dimension to the coverage in ways that retired NBA players can't replicate. She can talk about how concepts translate between leagues. She can discuss what it's like to face different defensive schemes as a guard. She can offer insights on how the game has evolved in the modern era because she's living it right now. That's valuable content that enhances the broadcast rather than distracting from it. And for NBC, this is also about building credibility with younger audiences who grew up watching Caitlin at Iowa and followed her into the WNBA. Those viewers might not have strong loyalty to traditional NBA coverage. They might not care about the same storylines that dominated basketball media for the past decade. But they care about Caitlin Clark, and if she's on NBC breaking down Lakers Knicks, they'll tune in to see what she has to say. That's audience expansion. That's bringing new demographics into the NBA viewership ecosystem. That's exactly what networks pay billions of dollars to achieve. Let's also address the elephant in the room, which is that Caitlin is doing this while she's still recovering from injury. Her 2025 season ended early because of physical issues that required rest and rehabilitation. She's committed to playing in Team USA qualifiers in March, which means she needs to be healthy and game-ready by then. So adding media responsibilities on top of training and recovery is not a small commitment. But here's why that matters. It shows that Caitlin understands her market window. She knows that her leverage and visibility are at an all-time high right now. She knows that opportunities like this don't come around often, and when they do, you have to capitalize on them, even if the timing isn't perfect. She's building her brand and her media skills during a period when she can't contribute on the court, which is smart long-term career planning. And it also shows that NBC is willing to work around her schedule and her commitments to basketball. They're not asking her to choose between playing and analyzing. They're creating a role that complements her playing career and enhances her overall value as a basketball personality. That's a partnership built on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. So where does this leave us? What does Caitlin Clark's NBC analyst role actually mean for the future of women's basketball and sports media? It means that the barriers between NBA and WNBA coverage are starting to break down in ways that create opportunities for crossover appeal. It means that networks are willing to invest in WNBA players as media personalities with value beyond their league affiliation. It means that Caitlin's influence on basketball culture extends far beyond her individual statistics and team success. And it means that February 1st is going to be a fascinating test case for whether casual NBA fans will accept a WNBA player as a credible analyst on their sport. If Caitlin delivers insightful commentary that enhances the Lakers-Knicks broadcast, if she holds her own alongside Hall of Famers, if she demonstrates basketball knowledge that transcends league boundaries, then this role becomes a blueprint for how other WNBA players can expand their media presence and earning potential. But if it doesn't work, if the audience rejects the concept, or if Caitlin struggles to provide NBA-level analysis, then it becomes a cautionary tale about pushing crossover appeal too far too fast. The stakes are real, the pressure is significant, and the outcome will shape how networks approach WNBA talent for years to come. My prediction? Caitlin is going to exceed expectations. She's going to bring a fresh perspective that makes NBC's basketball coverage more interesting and more accessible to a broader audience. She's going to prove that basketball IQ is basketball IQ regardless of which league you play in, and she's going to turn this two-game trial run into a long-term media career that runs parallel to her playing career for as long as she wants it to. Because here's the thing about Caitlin Clark that people keep underestimating. She doesn't just meet the moment, she defines it. She doesn't just fill the role, she transforms it into something bigger than anyone expected. That's what she did at Iowa. That's what she did in her rookie WNBA season. And that's exactly what she's going to do on basketball night in America. So mark your calendar for February 1st. Lakers versus Knicks, Madison Square Garden. Caitlin Clark's media debut. It's going to be appointment television, and it's going to tell us a lot about where basketball media is headed in the next decade. What do you think? Is NBC making a brilliant move by putting Caitlin on their flagship basketball show, or are they setting her up for failure by asking her to analyze a sport she doesn't play professionally? Drop your take in the comments, because this is a conversation worth having. And if you want more WNBA analysis that goes beyond the surface level takes, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started.